Hey guys, and welcome to another JaYoe conversation. I am back in Ningbo. Actually, this video is being recorded today, which is pretty cool. I just finished my CCTV travel show. I've lost a lot of weight. I'm feeling really good. I'm about to hash through a bunch of video. But I wanted to talk a little bit about something that has been bugging me. While I was on my trip, traveling to a bunch of cities recording my travel show, some news came out about a CDC report. Actually, it's not just a CDC report. It was Centers for Disease Control, American Red Cross, Synergy America, Eagle Global Scientific, Oak Ridge Institute for Science and Education, IHRC, and the CFD Research Corporation. The title of this video is obviously pretty clickbaity, but I want to challenge your thinking here. Now, my channel has been inundated with mostly positive comments. I followed the disease from its beginnings, at least the beginnings that we knew at the time in China. You saw me living in China and then traveling back to the United States, dealing with this virus as it propagated in the United States and then coming back to China. All of this, you know. And all of that was based on information that we knew at the time. As new information comes, then our understanding of this virus and the pandemic changes as well. I have always thought that I'm never going to say with 100% certainty where and when this virus started. I felt like it was very chaotic. There's a lot of things going on. I always was frustrated with the blame shifting to China because they were the first to report it. And listen, I am not saying in this video that it's not an impossibility that the current status of the idea that it started in this wet market or whatever is true. But there sure is a lot of other information out there that has a lot of merit. It gives me pause. So anyways, this report from the CDC tested blood that had been stored from people all the way back to December 13th was the earliest blood samples that they had. As a matter of fact, confirmed reactive samples, there was 39 patients out of 1,912 donations collected between December 13th and 16th of 2019. From residents of California, there was 23, and Oregon or Washington was 16. So there were 39 people that had antibodies all the way back in December 13th to 16th. I feel like this should be front page news, and correct me if I am wrong. And before you correct me if I'm wrong, let me go out there and say things that could be wrong. I've read that you can have antibodies for coronavirus, and it might be a different coronavirus. Especially in the beginning, there was testing issues. This virus was starting, the genome was being sequenced, and all of these kind of things. These tests are very recent. These tests are very recent on blood that is fairly old, or at least before China was supposedly having the virus. Now, from the original idea of China, there was the idea that on the 14th of December in 2019, Wuhan reported that there was mysterious pneumonia going around. There is also, and I'm just being totally honest, there's also a case that is unproven, but that there was something in China in November. The first case, a 55-year-old guy in Hubei. I could only find one article about it, and I couldn't find any scientific journals or anything about it. This CDC report is as concrete as you can get, and it was performed by so many different organizations. I would highly doubt that they would be reporting this if it was a potential that the coronavirus that they detected was not SARS CoV-2. So, okay, now, if this was discovered on December 13th, 2019, and there was antibodies, and it was in multiple locations. What does that tell us? Well, first of all, antibodies do not show up right away in blood testing. Once you get infected, your body has to go through a number of processes in order to understand what the virus is, what this attack is. Obviously, the virus is multiplying and everything, but eventually your body says, all right, we understand what the problem is, let's start fighting this thing, and so they start making antibodies. And it's only to a certain point that you can detect antibodies. The Mayo Clinic says that the SARS CoV-2 antibodies don't show up until 2 to 3 weeks. The CDC says the antibodies do not show up from 1 to 3 weeks. Let's just take a median there and let's say 2 weeks. 2 weeks is 14 days. If you minus 14 days from the time that they had detected the patients having antibodies, December 13th, if you go back 14 days, you're all the way back to January, the end of January. Kind of interesting, right? So, in America, in multiple locations, from blood that was taken, sampled, out of 7,389 unique donations, of these 106 were confirmed reactive. Now, some of them were tested a couple of weeks later, but they came from California, Connecticut, Iowa, Massachusetts, Michigan, Oregon, Rhode Island, Washington, and Wisconsin. All of those places detected positive antibody results. That's a wide spectrum of states all over the United States, and it just makes me wonder. Okay, other things make me wonder too. There was a bunch of other testing stories, right? Italy, November 2nd, 2019. Researchers from Italy and Canada analyzed swab specimens from September 2019 to February 2020 from 39 patients, and found a 4-year-old boy was positive in the area around Milan. November 2nd, 2019. There was blood samples in Italy from September of 2019, according to a Reuters article that said that the new coronavirus was circulating in September of 2019 by the National Cancer Institute of the Italian city of Milan. Should we be lighting pitchforks and heading for France? Should we be lighting pitchforks and heading for the States? I don't think so. But if you can challenge yourself to think about what if it didn't exist in China first? What if it existed earlier, much earlier, in the United States? What if it existed earlier, much earlier in France? If blood samples were being taken from states all over the United States on December 14th, showing cases in late January, what's the chance that it was spreading much earlier, before it had spread throughout all those states? When was the initial case in the United States? These aren't conspiracy theories. These are based on the information I've read. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm trying to take into consideration most possibilities. Maybe something was skewed. But this test is very recent, and we have a pretty good understanding of what we need to look for in human blood to detect SARS CoV-2. What does that tell you? Maybe it wasn't in China first. What does that mean to you? Well, to me, I think, well, shit. What would make you more angry? A country identifies a strange pneumonia. Politics and corruption extend the date of them telling the rest of the world about it, but they're figuring it out. Not too long. They end up figuring it out, sending the genome sequence out to everybody to pick apart, warning, doing drastic measures, closing off the city of Wuhan and the province of Hubei. And they're basically an example of the world that this shit is serious. Meanwhile, a country with the most advanced and sophisticated health system in the entire world, most well-funded for sure, my home, America, they have it at the same time. The same exact time, if not earlier. This report I'm reading really dictates to me that earlier is more the rule and not the exception. And they didn't say nothing. Flu seasons across all of these countries were crazy high. Before the COVID situation came, it was already showing the indicators that there was a strange and unusual amount of high rates of infection and death from a new flu season. What would have happened if China never discovered SARS CoV-2? They just started an explosive season of horrible coronavirus deaths, pneumonias, and things like this. And they were just saying that it's just flu. What would be worse, I'm just trying to say? A country that discovers it, maybe trips over its feet for a short time. Listen, guys, if you look at the timeline on China, it was a very short time that China was tripping over its feet in the very beginning. They went from not knowing what the hell was going on to trying to figure out what was going on to figuring out what was going on in a fairly short order. And mind you, everybody that f***ed up in China was fired. The entire Wuhan government apparatus was see you later. And they figured it out, and they locked down the entire city, eventually the entire province, eventually the entire country. I'm still living here in China, and it's still quite shut down. America, on the other hand, you know, this report says, the findings suggest that SARS-CoV-2 may have been introduced into the United States prior to January 19th, 2020. Well, just before, it says that they literally had cases of coronavirus on December 13th. So even the report here is sort of very strangely worded. They should be like, findings prove that SARS-CoV-2 had been in the United States prior to January 19th, 2020. I think that would have been a better way to state it, because literally the report proved that the coronavirus was there much, much earlier. Yet, even in the finding, they contradict themselves by saying findings suggest that SARS-CoV-2, well, they could even say suggest, right? Findings suggest that SARS-CoV-2 may have been introduced into the United States. Well, if you had it first introduced, I don't know, is that the correct word? Was in, I would even allow some leeway there. But findings suggest that SARS-CoV-2 has existed in the United States prior to January 19, 2020. I don't think there's may have or introduced. I think you should get rid of those words. And then subsequent reports have identified a patient with SARS-CoV-2 hospitalization in Wuhan with symptoms as early as December 1st, 2019. They actually mention that in the report. They don't even go back as far as I did, suggesting that it might have been in November. They literally say, subsequent reports have identified a patient with SARS-CoV-2 hospitalized in Wuhan with symptoms onset as early as December 1st. So they say Wuhan had a patient in December 1st, but according to the report, they detected somebody with antibodies on December 13th with a potential of 14 to 21 days prior infection point. So if this is correct, then they're basically saying that it existed at the exact same time in the United States and China. I mean, within a few days, or potentially, if you go out 21 days, could be even more. Could be that it was an America first. America first. Well, Trump did promote that theory. Maybe he's right. Maybe it was America first to infect the world with coronavirus. I'm just trying to make some people think a little bit. This is a report not biased by, well, trying to be biased, but not very biased by scientific standards. It's put out by the CDC and the American Red Cross. These are all, you know, they're on the Team America, you know. And yet, they're showing that the virus was spreading all over the United States at the same time that the first case was just being discovered in China. If we were to find out that China didn't produce the coronavirus, it didn't come out of China first, well, how would you feel about that? How would you feel about it if you found out that it started in America and America had to find out about the virus that they started from China? How would you feel if France found out that the virus that started in France was first reported in China? I'm just throwing it out there. I don't think we should be angry. I think that these viruses, I would think we should be happy that it was discovered when it was discovered, and that steps were taken when steps were taken. What if there's a villain that isn't China? Is it deserving of the moniker of villain? I don't think so. As much as I think China's deserving of the moniker of villain in this process. But think about it. I think that we are always manipulated. I'm manipulated too. You're manipulated. Everybody's watching this is manipulated. It takes an open mind to try to combat those preconceived notions or those notions that are being implanted in us. I think China is an easy target today. And as you've watched my videos, you know that. I'm not trying to be biased against America, but I'm also trying to be fair to China. I'm here. I saw what they did. They've done amazing things. America is still embroiled in a campaign of disinformation and deception that would never exist here in China. Not like that. Not in the way that it has, the effect on the populace, the way that it has in America. There's so many people sick, so many people dying. It makes me sad to see it, you know. If there was no China, let's just say in this scenario, and there was nobody to find this virus, and all of these other countries were throwing it up to a elevated flu season or a strange pneumonia outbreak, where would we be right now? I'm sure that some country would have found it, and some country would have realized that there's some strange things. Obviously, things were trending up. This process was just getting started as these like little pockets were forming around the world. There's no even confirmation that it existed first in France or America. Maybe it came from somewhere else and ended up there. Maybe it came from China. I'm not discounting that theory. What if China was not the one to find it? Ever? What if it just started plaguing the world? And how late to the game would we have been then? I'm pretty happy that China was the country that was able to get a handle on this thing first. I dread the idea of having an outbreak go crazy the way it did in Wuhan, but in Austin, Texas. I think it would have been a tragedy beyond measure. I don't think America could have done what China did with regards to seriously closing off borders and trying to contain this initial outbreak. Look at the way it is today. Look at where we are today. That's all you need to see. Life here in China is very normal. I am very saddened by the fact that this style of living is not available in other places. It is not only a China situation. There are other places around the world that are doing as well or are about as well as China. America is not one of them. I just figured I really wanted to make a video about this. This has gone quite long, but it just is crazy to me. All the sources for all the articles I've mentioned here are in the description, and even more so. So take a look. Read that report from the CDC, but read it with an understanding that those test results show antibodies, and those antibodies take 1 to 3 weeks to manifest and show. The report itself, the CDC report, highly referenced in Science and all of the articles, that reported December 1st, 2019 as the first case in Wuhan. That report. The same report that says that there was people, multiple, all over the United States on December 13th that had antibodies, which meant that they had the virus weeks earlier. Let me know how you feel. How would you feel if the virus originated in the United States? How would you feel if the virus originated in the United States as a thought experiment? You don't even have to believe me. But what would you feel if it originated in the United States, if it originated in the United States and they just never reported it? And it was only till the virus got to China that China reported it, and everybody blamed them for the blunders that occurred in the early process of them trying to figure it out and then create a defense system for it. How would you feel? Put it in the comment section below. As a thought experiment. America started the virus, and it ended up China. China found out what the virus was, told the world about it, and China is the big baddie. I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me. Hey guys, thanks for listening so long. Sorry, I hope I edited this thing down to a reasonable length, but thanks for joining. I like these conversations. I like to discuss these topics, and I like to see the comment section discuss them. If you want to listen to any sort of interesting stories I tell, like this video right now is happening now, today I'm going to upload it. So if you're interested in what's going on now in my life, I have a Patreon. You can check it out. Otherwise, social media, you can follow me. I've got a Douyin, Bilibili, Toutiao, a whole bunch of Chinese platforms. If you're interested in reading my Chinese platforms, they're kind of blowing up right now. My Chinese platforms are going insane. Otherwise, my travel videos are every other day, and those are following my journey right now while I'm going through Xi'an and experiencing some interesting stuff. So I hope you enjoy those. I hope you enjoy this video. And even if you don't buy into my suggestion, just kind of open your mind and think about how would you feel if America did have it, or some other country other than China. If you feel as much anger and hate towards them as you did towards China, if you do feel hate towards China, then okay, you got me. If you feel less hate or more understanding, then maybe you need to take a look at yourself and understand where that came from. Because I think a lot of people are hating China because it's in vogue. It's in vogue. Does that make sense? Because it's in style right now to hate China. And if other countries make you feel any less, then maybe that's something you might need to check in about yourself, because maybe there's some sort of ingrained bias. There's an ingrained bias in all of us, and so maybe that's something you need to reflect on in your own self. So thanks again. Take it easy. JaYoe. Bye-bye.